Happy Workshop Wednesday. Hard to believe it's already the third Wednesday of the new year. 2025 is going fast already. We're super excited to have you at Workshop Wednesday. So thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have some special guests that I'll introduce in a little bit, but they're going to talk about how FleetCommander helped Cornell University reimagine their fleet operation. So you're going to learn hands-on from clients. So today, just a reminder, Workshop Wednesday is Agile's monthly FleetCommander Knowledge Series. And these webinars are scheduled on the third Wednesday of every month from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So you can set that up on your calendar. And your feedback is needed to identify topics for future webinars. We're here for you and we want to make it what you need it. So please feel free to communicate what you would like to learn more about. And you can also tell us what you want to learn more about by scanning the QR code with your smartphone that will show on a later screen here. So before we begin, just a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. Your mic will be muted during the webinar, and a recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel, and a copy of the slides will be provided within 1 to 2 business days. For asking questions, we do want you to ask questions. So a couple points here on this screen. To ask questions, you're going to need to click to show the conversation button, which is to the left a little ways of the leave meeting button. And then you will then type your question. And when you type your question, if you can first also put in your name and where you're from, that does help us because it does not automatically come in through the system. So it's nice to know who we're talking to so we know how to best answer your question. And then we talked about that QR code. Here's that QR code right here if you want to take your smartphone out and snap a picture of that QR code. We'd be grateful and let us know different topics and so forth that we can do to help you. So today's agenda is going to be how FleetCommander helped Cornell University reimagine their fleet operation. I had the pleasure of going to Cornell last year and being able to meet with Billy and Cameron, and they've really done an amazing job of turning their fleet around. So we're going to take an overview of the Cornell fleet operations. They're going to tell us how to set up a successful maintenance program like they have. Going to do how to address maintenance record issues and talk about the importance of the data cleanup and review, and then how Cornell is taking a smarter approach to vehicle allocation. So our presenters today are Billy Meade and Cameron Berger, again, both from Cornell University. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them. And thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedules to help your peers learn from you. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathy. So again, I'm Bill Meade, Fleet Manager at Cornell University. Cameron, you want to introduce yourself, and I'll talk a little bit about my work history.
So my name is Cameron Berger. I'm the Maintenance and Operations Lead for Cornell University Fleet Services.
So Cameron is my right-hand guy within our operation. So first, I do want to make sure everyone's seeing which slide we're talking about right now. I'm still seeing the original slide. Am I sharing now? Is everyone seeing the picture of a bus with a whole team in front of it? Yes. All right. So within our organization, we are Transportation Delivery Services. We help the rest of university basically exist and provide everything they need to for campus, right? We manage the vehicles that service the plumbers and the building trades and all these different people. So we are like the people behind the operations that we want no one to know we exist. With that, we've been able to use Agile to really make it so we can seamlessly operate throughout the university. But so my history here is I started in our garage as lead mechanic in 2017. And over the years, I've really been able to learn how the university operates, expand my knowledge, and grow into management. And that's given me the opportunity to expand our team. And Cameron is part of that expansion. So, Cameron, you want to talk about yourself a little bit and what your history
Yeah,
is?
so I started at Cornell almost 15 years ago now. I started with the catering department in the operations and logistics side of that operation. I spent about 6 years there. I also did some logistics and operations for the Cornell dairy plant. Um, Post-COVID, I got moved over to the transportation delivery services as a driver for CU Lyft, which is our ADA delivery service on campus for students on crutches, people that have injuries, football player rolls an ankle, something like that. That led to basically working with Billy and an opportunity arising in fleet services to started out as an administrative assistant with Billy and then worked to create a job as essentially the maintenance operations lead that I'm currently in now.
Yeah, we've had the opportunity to be able to kind of shift and morph what we're doing for fleet. I mean, we've always been here to provide vehicles and service the university, but it's nice that we've been able to mold our department with, great people like Cameron who have been able to expand outside their roles. And, even though he didn't necessarily do that type of work here at Cornell, both of our histories are obviously with the mechanic side of the industry. So it's been awesome to have such a supportive, department within our university to make that happen. So, I'll get more into our fleet here. So we got roughly 400 vehicles that we service on campus. These range from everything down to a limited use vehicle, an electric gem that is used by our parking group, all the way up to our coach buses that you can see here, and everything in between: lawnmowers, tractors, trades vehicles. We got 12 passenger vans for students to use that go on trips for their research. Stake body trucks that are moving some sensitive lab equipment. We have a lot of stuff that happens at Cornell that you wouldn't really necessarily think about, but there's some pretty awesome stuff that happens here that we need to support for behind the scenes. So to kind of lead into that, what I want to do is I like to get people engaged and make sure everyone's getting the best they can out of this. So I'm going to throw out into our Q&A a question about Cornell. I like to see what people can know or maybe not know about Cornell or learn. So what was not invented at Cornell University? We got a multiple choice here. We got the chicken nugget, also known as the McNugget. We got a nail making machine, the first computer, and soundless clock. So one of these four items was not invented at Cornell. And which one do you think it is? Hopefully everyone's seeing that question come through.
They might have to click on the Q&A up top to get the Q&A to show up on the right-hand side.
So while we got that going, what do we got? We got one new guess, the McNugget. So the McNugget was invented at Cornell. Food science actually is quite involved in a lot of the food industry across, the Impossible Burger was invented here. A couple of things. So it looks like Megan Lau put in the computer, which is the correct answer. That was actually created where Kathy used to work.
You got it. Iowa State University.
Iowa State. I would say I didn't want to say Iowa without the full answer. Awesome.
Good job, Megan.
All right.
Thanks for playing.
We'll throw a few random ones out there throughout and just kind of quiz people and see what people can know or learn. So, but yeah, so this is a wrap up of what our fleet looks like. So let's get it. I gotta go to the next slide. So obviously we all dealt with COVID. There was great impacts to our fleet where fleet vehicles weren't being used. We obviously had to right size our fleet at that point. So we shedded quite a few vehicles during our shutdown. We had lots of issues with data management where our staff was so all over the place. Some people were working part-time, some weren't working at all. So we had a lot of clogged up data from our maintenance program, where when we really started to dive back into it, when things started to wrap back up and get people on campus and students were coming back, we were just really having a big problem with our information, trying to use Agile to our advantage to make it better. So that's when we met with Kathy, and she did a site visit, really learned what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and helped give us some guidance on how to basically right the ship and get things rolling in the right direction. So this is something that even since that visit, we're constantly in touch with Kathy and working with her to let her know what we're trying to do. If it's a good idea, bad idea, help us learn more and keep growing. So that's been a great continuous thing, and we've really improved quite a bit, to the point where we're really happy with what we've been doing. So we mapped out our process. And Cameron, do you want to walk through and talk about how we handled this?
Yeah, so what we did, we really took an in-depth look with Kathy at our operation and really tried to find some of the glaring inefficiencies that we had. One of the things that we did, we took our entire team and we sat down and we process mapped out our entire operation. We essentially took ourselves, all our administrators, and all of our mechanics, and we sat in a room and said, we're going to sit down and we're going to go through every step by step, and we're going to find the inefficiencies. We're going to find the things that we do well. We're going to map this out and try to, as a team, come to a conclusion as the best way to move forward to make ourselves more efficient, make life a little bit easier on ourselves. The biggest inefficiency that we found was that our mechanics were basically not creating work orders in what we call the proper process. Essentially, the system that we had set up before, a driver would basically come in, fill out a piece of paper, leave their keys, and say, "Hey, call me when it's done." Anybody that's ran a shop knows the efficient way to get things in and out of a shop. So the first thing we did was basically my role coming in was to kind of be that buffer between our mechanics and our customers, because our mechanics at the time were essentially, they were service writers, they were schedulers, they were mechanics, they were customer service reps. They weren't able to really just kind of focus and do their job being a mechanic. That's what they're good at. That's what they're skilled at. That's what they want to do. So implementing these things into the operation, we immediately noticed a difference in the length of repair times. For example, we would have somebody come in and say, "Hey, I just need an oil change." They'd leave their keys. It would maybe take 2 or 3 days to get to it because we weren't ready for that vehicle to come in. It just kind of got dumped in our lap. Shouldn't take 3 days to get an oil change. Since implementing these new processes, our repair times are much shorter. We're basically at a point now where we could take that oil change now and do it on the fly because we have the things in place to be more efficient and to have the outlook to kind of know what we're doing today, what we're doing tomorrow, what next week looks like. Another advantage to doing this, it helped create a more accurate parts inventory for us, which led to, for us, smarter procurement practices. We're able to forecast ahead and kind of know the parts that we need to order. So we're ordering those, the parts are there when the vehicle gets there that day, most days. We're not having to wait for the vehicle to come in, then order parts, and then wait for them to show up. Or again, because we're scheduling and we're looking ahead, we know that these things are coming, we're much more efficient. Once we got a lot of these things kind of standardized, we really started to see kind of things maybe weren't as bad as we thought they were. I remember our first kind of interaction with Kathy and showing her like our maintenance dashboard, and shocked like we were, and it was overwhelming, and we didn't know where to start. And she was kind of a calming voice of reason to say, "Hey, here's the things that we're seeing. Here are the things you guys can do. you guys can do this, and here's kind of a path forward on how to do some of those things. Cool. Sorry. So again, one of the major kind of inefficiencies we found, it really just came down to repairs not being tracked properly. We were doing the work, we just weren't tracking it properly. So it looked as though, we had 200 vehicles that were due for a state inspection that were overdue. And in reality, those inspections had been done. They just weren't tracked properly inside of Agile. So we were looking at very bad data. And again, it seemed overwhelming, like a giant mountain to climb out of. Essentially what we had to do, and it was a lot of work, was we had to go through each vehicle one by one, look at our repair logs. We compared those against the New York State inspection data that we had. I literally spent, I think, 2 days going down line by line, asset by asset, saying this vehicle had a state inspection done in the state database and we don't have it in Agile, so make a work order, put the inspection in on the day that we did it, clean up the data one vehicle at a time. And again, the cleaner and cleaner that we got this data, it really started to provide a clearer picture of where our maintenance cycles actually were, how far behind we really were, and come to find out it wasn't quite as bad as we thought it was. We're still behind a little bit, but it wasn't so overwhelming anymore. And we were able to kind of start moving forward, putting these new processes into place and really honing in on, okay, now that we've got the data clean, we know what needs to be done, so let's start tackling those things and prioritizing the things that we know need to be done more.
Yeah, the other thing to add that we haven't touched on is at one point we did work on trying to clean this up prior to this visit from Kathy. And there is an option in your maintenance tab on an asset. And there's a difference between a maintenance plan and a scheduled task. We had gone down the path of trying to switch some of our maintenance items, like a New York State inspection, to a scheduled task. Not everything works the same way as far as maintenance plan versus scheduled tasks. So we kind of clogged up our own maintenance data by creating some scheduled tasks. Maybe it was like we didn't fully understand when we implemented that it would not work the way we hoped it would. So we'll get into it in a demonstration later to spell out the difference between those two. So the other thing to think about too is part of this data cleanup that Cameron was working on and speaking about is when you think of an oil change, most people just think, oh yeah, it's just an oil change. That's fine. It's not a big deal. You check the vehicle over, you do your lube, oil, and filter, check the tires, whatever you're doing. Well, we have a wide range of vehicles that serve in a lot of different purposes, right? So every manufacturer has their own specification for what they want for service intervals. We obviously have different use of the vehicles. So there's some vehicles that we need to see more often than others. There's some that we see more often just based on miles. So it's pretty critical when you're building your work order and building your maintenance plans to have the proper type of task chosen. So here's a few different options of just an LOF for our oil changes that we do on campus. And there's sometimes this can be a manual chosen task by a mechanic for a work order that can really skew your data. If you're supposed to have a oil change every 6 months at every 5,000 miles, and that's what your maintenance plan is calling for, but the mechanic builds the work order and chooses a different task. If they choose a 12-month, 5,000 mile oil change, that will not update your maintenance plan. So it'll still show that it's due. You did the oil change, the maintenance is done on the vehicle, the work order is recorded, so you might have covered your costs, your inventory is accurate, but your maintenance plan is not. So a lot of this correction was on top of the inspection, was going in and making sure that matched the maintenance plan. Now, Typically, you only have to choose the task for a work order if you're doing the work order or the oil change before the scheduled task comes up in the maintenance plan. So again, there's not an opportunity later when we do a live demo to show you how that works in practice. So here's a picture of our dashboard for the maintenance side. This is where we can look and get a quick overview of what we've been doing in the shop. So I can use this without having to go to Cameron or the mechanics to see how we're doing. How much work's getting done? Are we seeing a lot of breakdowns? What's our number one repair? What's our number one maintenance item we're doing? It's a good quick view of a way to get a pulse on what's going on. Now, if you had looked at this dashboard a year and a half ago, those numbers would have been quite a bit higher. The little Pac-Man, that's the comparison of your PM versus RM, was drastically different. There was a lot more yellow than there was blue, which is very reactive. We were having to, kind of chase our tail to catch up on breaks that were getting out of, they were grinding before they maybe should have, or there was tires that were needing to get done. We were having breakdowns where, they would need to go get jump started or replace a battery off site. A lot of different things that we were seeing just because we were dealing with that older fleet that was not as reliable. So the other factor here is we were able to use all this information to help us justify hiring another mechanic, which is really, really useful. Once that data got cleaned up, we got this to be accurate. It proved more of what we needed to get that full-time employee. So anything on this slide you want to add, Cameron?
No, I think you covered most of that. I know, like, personally for me, when Kathy came for our site visit, our PM to RM ratio was about 60-40 the wrong way. So I know for me, that was one of the personal goals that I set for us, was to really hone in on that and get that back in line with industry standards. We're currently running about 75-25 PM to RM. So we've really kind of righted the ship there. And a big part of that is going to be, I think, in the next slide, being smarter with our vehicle purchase allocation.
Right. So as I mentioned earlier, COVID impacted us. So spending freeze. We obviously saw that the manufacturers were not building vehicles, or at least some of the vehicles that we wanted. Transit Connects, anything we needed for the facility side, we were really having a hard time getting. So we had to do some outside the box thinking, but we were also doing repairs that we typically wouldn't do based on our cycle of vehicle. We want to keep a vehicle 7 years. Typically don't break 100,000 miles, and most vehicles that come on campus don't even see that kind of miles in the life cycle of 7 years. But we had some 10 to 12-year-old vehicles that we were doing full rebuilds of the front ends, transmission replacements, things that we typically didn't do. So with that elevated cost of maintenance, we were noticing we were spending a massive increase every year. It was about 50% increase on maintenance cost every year after year, after a 6-year-old of age for an asset. So we use that as well as our maintenance records to justify spending. We made a purchase of about $3 million worth of vehicles. It was roughly 40 trades vehicles that were fully upfitted for plumbers, electricians, ACR techs, different things. And we also justified our extended warranty program that is with our local dealer. We had a big increase in ECU failures. They could have been based on vehicles sitting, maybe being jump started improperly by some of the trades folks on campus. There's a lot of unknowns, but we had roughly 30 vehicles over the last couple of years we had to put computers in some way, shape, or form. So that was basically our justification for the warranty, because the cost of those modules or the computers were the same price as that warranty. So would have saved us a lot of money and better projected our budget for assets by not having to worry about those large repair items. And some of these topics I just covered on the last slide. But we do have a pretty well fitted shop, as you can see.
The TO is really something we focus on. As Billy was saying, our maintenance costs were nearly doubling every year after 6 years, and as we all know, older vehicles take a lot more maintenance, more parts, more money, right? Being short-staffed also really exacerbated a lot of our problems, and being able to use our data within Agile to present that story to our leadership, that we were actually much busier than we thought. And they were very open and receptive once they saw actual clean data coming to them that made sense. One of the biggest operational effects, at least on our side of the house, of the maintenance side, replacing those older vehicles really, it's not only the amount of money it costs to fix those vehicles, it's the time, right? We only have so many lifts in our shop. If a vehicle is taking 2, 3, 4 days worth of repairs because we're rebuilding an entire front end and a transmission, we can't be as nimble and efficient in the shop in order to get those vehicles in and out. I mean, we had days where all 4 of our main lifts would be tied up with vehicles that have been there for 2 or 3 days, and you just start getting a backlog of things trying to come in behind it. Once you get behind, it's harder and harder to catch up. So being able to get rid of some of those problem child vehicles that we had really, really improved our operational efficiency in the shop. So another thing that we implemented about, I think, 6 months ago, we hit on earlier that we run a coach bus service. It runs from our campus in Ithaca, New York, down to Manhattan and back. Typically between 2 and 3 runs back and forth a day. We weren't really utilizing Agile before to kind of run that program. We had a system in place for our cleaners where essentially they just kind of had to know what bus was back, and we had a way of indicating if the bus was clean or not, basically by throwing absorbent floor mats on the stairs. That was kind of their indication that, hey, this bus has been touched and it's been clean. Billy and I were kind of brainstorming one day, and we said, hey, I wonder if we could kind of run our coach bus program through Agile and just kind of treat it as like a daily reservation. There's really no difference. So we started beta testing that kind of in the background. Immediately saw positive effects from it. Our cleaners now come in, and just like the vehicles that come back from our daily rental, they have a list when they walk in. They come in, they open up the prep screen, they know exactly what vehicles are priority for the day, they know which bus is ready for them. The other really big thing for us is being able to capture the mileage more frequently on these buses. If you've dealt with over-the-road buses and you deal with the DOT, you know that they're very strict on mileage intervals, maintenance intervals. There is no, oops, we went a couple miles over, our bad. It's, you better not go 1 mile over on your interval or you're going to get flagged by the DOT for that. So having this in place, again, has really been a huge advantage for us to be able to project our maintenance intervals on our buses looking forward. Previously, our mechanics would just kind of once a morning go out and grab the mileages off of them, maybe every other day. Sometimes people forget, and sometimes those intervals sneak up on you, and all of a sudden a bus you thought you were going to send out this guys, oh man, we can't send this bus out today because we're going to go over our mileage. We've curtailed probably 95% of that in the last 6 months of just having that data in real in front of us, being able to project out, again, being able to set maintenance reminders that, hey, you've got 1,000 miles till this bus needs a service. We know a round trip to Manhattan and back is about 450-ish miles, so that's roughly 2 trips when we get that indication that it's ready. And this has been a major upgrade to our maintenance program for sure. So
Yeah,
I think Billy's got a few live demos for you on how to build a work order, how we build work orders, and then kind of how we build maintenance plans and how we kind of decide what maintenance plan to put with what type of vehicle.
I'm just going to share my screen to a different monitor here. All right, so as we mentioned, there is a lot of different ways you can build maintenance plans, build work orders, pretty straightforward. But yeah, I'm going to give you a brief summary over our maintenance plans and the different things that go into it. So we have, I'm not sure how many people here are actually using the maintenance plan or the maintenance task yet for in-house maintenance, or even some of their outsourced maintenance. You can track it here as well. But we've broken down and created a lot of different maintenance plans. Depending on what shop you're in at Cornell, we have our facility where we manage our vehicles for the fleet and campus to campus. Plus, we have a really remote location from our main campus up in Geneva that is servicing some of our vehicles as well as their own vehicles. Then there's Botanic Gardens, which has got some of their own vehicles that they've managed, and they're using Agile to do all this for their maintenance now, as well as our coach bus. So we've had to create a large list of different maintenance plans depending on what the vehicle is. These can get really granular, or they can be pretty vague. So we have talked about the idea of what it would look like to go deep enough into a maintenance plan where it's so specific that even when you create an oil change for a vehicle, you can associate parts with it. We are not to that level of doing it because our maintenance plans cover multiple different asset types. If we were to have a maintenance plan that was a 12-month, 5,000 mile interval, and it was just to cover, say, our Chevy Express vans, you could get that granular where that oil change task for that vehicle automatically populated your inventory of what it took to do that oil change. We don't do that because we have Toyota Camrys, we have Grand Caravans, we have Express vans, we have Super Duty trucks, we have Chevys, we have everything, big range. So, but this is just one of our more basic maintenance plans, just to get us to keep track of the fundamental stuff that has to be done every year. We also have some of them for our buses that are a lot more involved. I don't know if anyone here has coach buses, but they are pretty extravagant machines. Our older units also have generators on board, so that's a separate asset that we don't necessarily track individually, but we do have part of the maintenance plan that tracks maintenance for that generator in the coach. So you can see here that we have all sorts of different miles intervals and day intervals for when this task is due next. Now, these matter when you're making your work order and when it will remind you to do this again. Now, there's also parts of your task that you can set up to indicate when these warning miles and days come up to start to remind you of when you need to actually do this work. So if you had this task of accessory drive belt to service that, we do it every 50,000 miles, twice a year. Well, we want a reminder 1,000 miles before it's due or 5 days before we got to do it based on time. So these parameters are important if you want that heads up We obviously have DOT requirements we have to follow for federal regulations. So some of these maintenance intervals cannot go over that 50,000 miles. Drive belt's not one of them. But for example, if this was our PMI and we do those every 10,000 miles, we can't go to 10,001 miles with that. We get points against us for going over that threshold. So these reminder indicators that pop up on our maintenance dashboard are critical. So again, these can be customized in a lot of different ways. So as I was mentioning before, you can add parts into these maintenance plans. So if you do only have one type of vehicle that this maintenance plan covers, you can save your mechanics some time by adding in labor time, adding in parts. If you know this work is done by someone that's sublet at a shop that is either off campus, or maybe you guys just don't have your own facility and you work with a local vendor or something that they always do all your service, you can set this information up ahead of time. Yeah, so our maintenance plans, again, there's some in here that are older that we've eliminated based on the cycle of the industry. We obviously don't use a conventional oil anymore. Everything's either a synthetic blend or a full synthetic, or maybe you're just fleet changes and you don't need this plan anymore, so you make it inactive. It's still there in case you need it someday, but it's no longer there. So I'm gonna hop over and find a vehicle that we can create a work order with. Hopefully something that has some due maintenance to give you an example of automatically populating a work order. So another thing I want to mention before I get into the work order itself, we do internal billing for reservations. We do it for work orders, and we do fuel billing in a separate system. But when we were creating work orders, we used to have to manually enter account fields in work orders every time we created a work order. A feature that is really handy to us is this account field right here on the vehicle profile. Now, this will automatically generate and fill into our work orders now. That's something that Agile was able to help us with. So if you do work orders and you do bill the work orders, this is something that's saved us a lot of time and a lot of administrative time to make sure that information is accurate on our work orders. Because the prior way of doing it was to open the old work order, copy and paste the account number out of it, go to the new work order that you just created, put it in there, and hope that it was accurate last time. So, all right. So for example, this vehicle is due for an oil change based on the miles that was provided to Agile, whether this came from someone entering it. So it looks like the driver of this vehicle submitted their miles and it prompted this maintenance plan to show overdue. So if I wanted to create a work order, I can go right here, choose this task. We're going to choose our shop since we're doing this in our location. But any provider that you've ever chosen to add to the system will show up in this drop down when you are creating your work order. So say we weren't the ones doing the work at Fleet Services and we had it outsourced to one of our local shops, Varna Auto, we can choose that provider. And then that will record in the work order that they are the ones that did the work and not us. It helps us, track what kind of workload we got, what we're outsourcing. It's help keep that balance. So this is where anything that would pop up that is currently due for this vehicle. Earlier when I mentioned choosing the wrong task and having to clean that data up, if this task was not due by miles, this would not show up on the screen. This would be blank in this lower section. All you would have to do is then choose your technician. We're tracking the type of work we're doing in the shop. So if we have a breakdown, we want to know that we can look at a work order and know why it was in the shop. So breakdown is one of the ones we use. If it's, something we had to go rescue, do a road call, have towed in, any of that. But you have many different options in here to identify what this work order, what the purpose of it is. So when we get new vehicles in, we're purchasing a new vehicle, we do an in-service on them where we undercoat them. We, take the wheels off, we take the brakes apart, make sure everything's good, put it all back together. This would be our pre-delivery maintenance check, something that we want to track to see how many of these new vehicles we've got compared to how many of these pre-delivery maintenance work orders we've created to make sure every vehicle has had that done. Depending on how you want to code this, you can do preventative maintenance, you can do routine maintenance, but it gives you a way to do that. Again, there is other aspects where if you are charging departments and you want to provide some profit for your department, you can do markups and determine that based off your own settings. We are not set up to where we should be making money. We should be breaking even with our maintenance so that we don't do any markups on our work orders. But so obviously this oil change is overdue. Going back to what Cameron mentioned, the driver has submitted the online request form to the point where they have a maintenance appointment. They drop the keys off. Cameron's done his part. The technician's getting in here, making his work order, checking that box to make sure he's doing the right oil change. And we create the work order, which brings us to the general page of a work order. It pulls all your information here on the left-hand side from the profile of the vehicle and the reservation that has all the information here. If you wanted to choose a different batch of information here to show on the profile, on the work order, you can do that, but we always leave it on the responsible user, which is the person that is typically the same person as the driver of the vehicle, but not always. But it's always good to have that there in case someone needs to call or email the driver of that vehicle or responsible person that dropped that vehicle off. So like I mentioned earlier on the profile page, that account field automatically populates on the work order. Now, again, this was a huge hassle before this was a thing. We highly recommend you do that, especially if you do any internal billing. That would save finance a lot of time. Depending on what we have going on, private comments versus public comments, anything you put in the private comment, like it says here, will not print on the work order. This is a place where we might track if it smells like cigarette smoke in the vehicle, since smoking is against policy. If the vehicle is excessively dirty, or maybe someone has, on strike 2 for damage on their vehicle, we try to record stuff here. Stuff that we want to know, but maybe not necessarily the driver or the admin that may want or request a copy of this work order. So say, signs of smoking in the vehicle. And then that would be our little thing on our side of the operation to be able to see, okay, well, last time it was here, we also saw this, cigarette ash in the cup holder. Now it's definitely something where we'd have to, take that to some other level. But then we're doing an oil change. We try to leave these pretty brief. There's opportunity on the other task page to write other notes as well. But we have morphed our scheduling and tracking the priority of our work in work orders. Now, this is both a metric that we're looking at, but plus this also helps deciding on what work to do next. Now, we really want things to be scheduled. It helps everything with the workflow and knowing what we got to get done that day. But there's still times where we really need to, push something to high level priority, get that thing done as quick as possible. So depending on what we got to do, we can choose our priority there. The next drop down here is the status of the work. Now, depending on what kind of project you're working on, this could see different phases. An oil change isn't really the best example for this because a lot of this is just a quick done repair. Now, when we have bigger projects going on, like ball joints, tires, transmission, bigger things, we will put this work order in different statuses depending on where we at on the job. So once the mechanic gets the work order and he's working on the vehicle, we'll put it into working status. There's times where they get halfway through the job and their tool breaks or the parts store sent the wrong part. Different things happen. And we got to put this job on hold. That vehicle is either going to stay on the lift or go back outside. We can put it on hold, which will then give us another status reason to identify what is going on with this work order. This is where we can get more detail without having to communicate. If I'm working from home that day and I need to check on this vehicle that someone's reached out to me about, I don't want to have to pick up the phone to call Cameron. Cameron very much knows what's going on with this vehicle at our shop, but I'm not there to know what's going on. So this vehicle had to get put outside because it's waiting on parts. The nice thing is I can just look at this work order, see that, oh, there's a reason we're putting it on hold. They're probably not going to be ready today. We're waiting on parts. I can tell that person that reached out to me, no, it's not ready. This is what we got going on. It's really nice to get granular. We can also set up, like I said, about outsourcing some work. We know this oil change may have gotten done by a different shop. We just don't know exactly the cost, or we want to, get the new updated miles. We can put it waiting on an invoice from that vendor. Again, you have the opportunity to choose your primary technician again. So say I originally created this work order for myself. I got it inside. Cameron called me. He needed me to go for a road call. Someone else comes in. They're going to do this oil change now. We obviously don't want to record that I was the primary technician working on this vehicle. I'm going to choose it to, switch over to Chris. It's, again, there's other ways we can break up the labor on a work order, but this is the primary person that was the person that drove it in and out of the shop. That's our goal with the primary technician. Again, if this divulges into something else other than preventative maintenance, you have the option to change your default reason for the work order, because there is times that you get in here, that oil change turns into much more, and you need to change this classification if you're going to track this type of work. So that granular, the VMRS system. So some groups want estimates. We don't typically use the estimate field, but it's there if you did need to give them an estimate of what the cost would be up front. Again, it's nothing we really use, but we also have started to implement this estimated completion date, though. It helps us track how we're doing as a shop. We have a vehicle scheduled for the 15th. We plan on getting it done the 15th. We can say we're going to have it done by the end of the day today. So we can set it for 2:30, and that will set us up for our goal. When the technicians are looking at their dashboard, they would see this time and date associated with this work order for them to know, okay, I got to have that vehicle done by the 15th at 2:30. When you do get into actually time tracking the work and the mechanics actually doing the work, they can punch the start time on their work order. Now, this would show on the work order that we started it late. So obviously if we wanted to track that information and see how we're doing, we'll see that, well, we missed our deadline, but it still got done the same day. So the miles pull in for this on based on the profile. We have the option to update it if we wanted to whatever it is on the vehicle. And I want to save this page before going to the next page. So this task was bumped in automatically and created under the work order by me checking that box when we were on the first page to create the work order. So again, earlier when I said that there's a primary technician on the home page of the general tab, This still gives you the opportunity to assign labor to someone else. You can charge different labor rates on the work order. So our type A is our standard $57 an hour. We have type B, which is $87.50. This is like a callback emergency labor rate for our buses. Since we're in one facility, but we bill our labor based on what you're working on. So our fleet services is for our vehicles. Our Palm Road garage is for our campus buses. So we charge things differently depending on what work you're doing and when you're doing the work. But this is one of those tasks where with me doing it, charging labor rate A, we automatically associate 0.5 of an hour labor with this task. So that automatically generated when I added that labor. Now, if I wanted to add a second guy's labor to this, because there was 2 people on this oil change, Cameron helped me with this oil change. The default time will automatically go to 1 hour. So you may want to adjust this to 0.5. And it does the math and saves that as well. So you can save your changes before moving on. Our parts, again, you can add parts right to your work order or your maintenance plan. So it punches in the parts, but since we have such a wide range of vehicles, we don't do that. So you can do this a couple different ways. So you can type in the type of part you're looking for, which is oil filter, and you're going to see in the drop down all the items in your parts inventory that have the word oil filter in it, based on the description of the part. Now, the other thing you can do is based on the part, you can punch the part number in. So if it's a P10 and you only know a partial part number, it does start to come down, but you want to bill out, the proper part number. It does show you how many you have in hand. You can choose that, change the quantity, save and add another part. And then our used oil is another thing we have on here. So we have a couple different bulk oils that we track this as a placeholder, so that we don't necessarily inventory these items. So some of our inventory is showing negative 885 quarts of oil. But it's just an item that we have on here as a placeholder. We don't actually charge this part out, but so then if we were to sublet work and send it out to another shop, this is where we can add, an alignment that was done by a different shop. And again, this sublet list is the same vendor list that you provide on your providers list. And then you can associate a cost with that alignment. This will record any of your outsourced work, which is good to have. If we were to do something like this and have an alignment that was done by someone else, we have the opportunity to attach the file right here at the Files tab. So I can actually add the file and take the work order right from Varna Auto and have that tied right here to this work order. When you do this, you are not only attaching it to the work order, but on the asset, you can actually go to the files and see any attached file that was attached to any work order, as well as add files to this Files tab. So you can see this battery was done at Monroe Muffler. If we were ever questioning the warranty on this battery or anything that needed to be done, here's that work order attached right to the profile. We don't have to go digging through the work orders to find this outsourced work. So, but we're getting close on time, so that wraps up my show and tell on the building a work order. Anyone have any questions?
Awesome, thank you. Are you still sharing the presentation? Or
No,
can you reshare, please?
That's where I'm going right now.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that hands-off stuff, hands-on stuff. It's always nice to see people actually doing it in their own site, right? With their own vehicles and everything like that. And what's good too, I don't know, but one of my favorite screens in the vehicles and with the maintenance and stuff is being able to see how much maintenance has been done life to date and how much maintenance has been done year to date. And I always thought, that was really important screens as well. So we're going to fast forward here. Oh, where to go?
I don't know. Is it there?
I'll let you fast forward to where we are. Or do you want me to take it?
Hang on. It asked me to try again in Teams.
Okay. I'm happy to.
Did it go?
Okay, there we go. I'm going to navigate forward, okay?
Yep.
Awesome. So thank you very much for doing that. Does anybody have any questions for Billy or Cameron? Because I appreciate them, taking their time to be with us today and present. If not, I also want to just, remind you of your resources. So these are the people behind Agile Fleet. When you see Agile Fleet, you most often generally see myself or Anna, helping us and Mike, at command and so forth. But these are the fine folks that are standing behind you and making sure that you get what you need. There's HR, payroll, IT, development, all kinds of good folks there. So just want to remind you that we appreciate your support from our team to yours. And if you would like, an analysis done like what we did for Cornell, reach out to Todd or I, and we're happy to come visit or walk through your business plan with you and so forth and see what we can do to help you reduce the workload and be more efficient inside your fleet. So let us know. Command 2025, we're excited to let you know that Command 2025 is officially going to be at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis, Minnesota, October 7th through October 9th. So everyone knows early this year, and you'll be able to mark it on your calendar. So we'll feature, what the attendees have always loved about the conference, plenty of those opportunities to network and so forth with their peers, different presentations by peers and by our staff as well, and seeing what changes are out there. So we look forward to seeing you at Command. Just another reminder, Workshop Wednesday. Please feel free to let us know if you would like to showcase your fleet in Workshop Wednesday. A lot of people mentioned in Command 2024 that they would like to see more of the fleets actually present. So Cornell here, Billy and Cameron were the first ones willing to do that for us. So thank you for being the pioneers in that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having us.
You betcha. And just a reminder, FC Drive, if you haven't gone to the FC Drive site, make sure you do. This is a database with all the answers to your questions for the most part. Instead of when you call support or email support at fcsupport.agilefleet.com, I encourage you to first try Drive. So this is our new tool, and with it, you can go in and ask a question such as, how do I add a vehicle? How do I create a work order? And it will pull up screens. It will tell you how to do it. And there's also a lot of how-to videos on here as well. So it's a knowledge base for everyone, and it's been very well put together, and it is constantly being added to. And if there's a specific topic that is not in there that you really would like to see in there, please let us know and we can push that up the priority list. Just a reminder too, our YouTube channel has all our previous Workshop Wednesdays, as well as any other additional webinars we've done, such as like we did 100 best fleets yesterday and so forth. So any additional webinars that we do, you can visit, and the repository is always there, and you can go back to those videos. As always, there's our online resources at our website as well. And, let us share your success. If there's anything that you need that you would like to help, write a couple paragraphs for a newsletter talking about your fleet, or if you'd be willing to do a white paper so we can highlight your fleet, we would love to tell your story. So reach out to us, and we'll get you in touch with our marketing folks, and Anna and Mike can get that set up for you. And not last but least, here, our Agile support team. They are on staff 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can reach them at fcsupport@agilefleet.com or by our phone number at 571-498-7555, extension 2. And then again, also, you can reach out to Todd or I individually, or at cs@agilefleet.com. And just to let you know too, we are adding to our client success team at Agile Fleet. So feel free to look at our website to apply for that position if that's something that you're interested in. And it is also on LinkedIn and Indeed and the NAFA website as well. So if you know of anybody that would be a good team player to join our team, please let us know and send them our way. We're on social. You can always connect with us: LinkedIn, X, Facebook, YouTube, all the good places. And thank you for attending today. Again, if you could tell us how we're doing, we certainly hope that we are, meeting your expectations with a 9 or a 10. But if we aren't, please make sure when you fill out this survey that you let us know what it is that we need to do better, because we're here to serve you, and we want to make sure that we're making the most of your Agile Fleet experience and getting you the tools that you need to make your job easier. Thank you so much for being a part of Workshop Wednesday. Next month, it will be on February 19th. And we look forward to seeing you then. And again, thank you so much to Billy and Cameron for joining us today and spending your day with us and teaching us what you've done to improve your fleet. So we appreciate your time.
Thanks again for having us.
You bet. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.